to Make That Paper, the show where we talk about all the crazy jobs we do to make the cash we need to pursue our artistic dreams.
And to set some aside for our kids' inevitable therapy.
Today, we're talking about the booze slinging biz and the toddler contortionism trade. And let's not forget the old pretend perfume peddling profession. We are your hosts, Jaime Parker Stickle.
And I'm Jason Bieber.
And on this episode, we are talking to a comedian who has hustled her way through the ranks of the comedy world to become the head writer and host of her own show, The World's Funniest Weather, received a standing ovation from all 4 judges on America's Got Talent, wrote 6 comedic survival books, and who is one of the most sought-after comedy coaches in Hollywood.
And you know she's got a podcast.
Oh, yeah.
But I think she would argue that all of those are side hustles to support her true passion of being a cat lady.
I agree. We couldn't be more thrilled to welcome to the show our good friend and comedy mentor, the one and only Jodi Miller.
Hey, wouldn't it have been so uncomfortable if you were like Tracy Mullins and I was like, who?
Oh, damn it.
You couldn't get Tracy. I don't even know who Tracy is. Tracy,
She's on her way.
I'm sure there's a Tracy
We've
Mullins.
only got 6 minutes left, actually. We've got to bump you for Tracy.
Okay, bye.
Fortunately, she's also a cat lady.
Yeah.
I am a cat lady. I am. Thank you for recognizing that. That just sort of happened. Thankfully, I now have a daughter, so I'm not a crazy cat lady. I'm just a cat lady that has a kid. You slowly are like, okay, you're not as crazy because you also support a human life as well as a feline lives.
I think that really depends on how much the cat is doing to raise the child.
Jersey's actually, he doesn't really pull his weight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, he's got to be old.
Well, he's
Jersey's
15. He's 15.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's a good babysitter, no doubt. But, like, if I ask him to take her to daycare, he's like, I don't feel like driving today. He's really just so selfish.
Just useless.
How is he with the food pickup? Because I know, like, we are dog people, and our house is never a mess because the crumbs, where are they? Dogs, vacuums.
It's
So
amazing.
yeah.
Jack eats on the
He
couch.
Jersey doesn't care about puffs, and because she's just right now she's in a puff puree stage, so she's still like, or like guacamole. Like there's like clumps of guacamole on the floor yesterday and sweet potato, but it's really the puffs, those little like puffs that I put them on her tray as I'm making like her food, and she just immediately is like, and I'm throwing these everywhere, and then they're everywhere, and then I step on them, and Jersey has because they don't really smell. Dogs I think just eat everything. They're just like
everything.
Cats really don't eat things that they can't smell, so unless it's like really pungent, and those little puffs are like they're like cardboard that say banana, strawberry.
Oh, our kid, we had his first infant Heimlich on infant Heimlich on a puff.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Jason
was like, here we go.
He had shoved like 4 of them in his mouth.
Yeah.
Did you just give him that hard pat on the back?
Yeah. Well, he turned him on his side and gave him the pat that pushed it, the up pat,
God,
and it went out. Yeah.
Mackenzie fell face forward in her new little tub last night, and of course I was looking. I heard like a bleh, and I turned. She was there for like a second, but she was face in it, and her face was wet. She didn't cry or anything, but she definitely was like. And I was strangely calm because. And I was a nanny. That was one of my jobs that I've had. I've been a nanny. I've been a babysitter. I was a mother's help. I've been like, I was a camp counselor. I've taken care of kids for years.
You were even a toddler gymnastics coach.
Yes, I taught little kids gymnastics. So I've been around kids for a really long time. It's very terrifying. But I was in high school, so nothing terrifies you when you're in high school except the most popular girl. She's the only thing that can terrify you. But everything else, nothing terrifies you.
It's true. Yes. It's true. When you are under the age, I'm going to go so far as to say under the age of 25, and you're a camp counselor, and they're like, oh, you need to know CPR, so you get certified. There is never a moment that you're like, yeah, I actually need to know this. This is going to happen. Yeah. Never. Yes, even if it does happen, you're strangely calm when it's not your kid. I babysat. I've done all of that, and I've seen kids fall like face first onto the concrete, and you're very much just like, whoa, wait, it's okay. You bruised the concrete. You never have that like weird reaction. Cut to, she was a month old, my daughter, and it was the first tape day I was going back for the weather show, and I was like, I can do it all. I was gonna I was dropping her off. I was taking her to the doctor, and then I had a sitter coming that day because she wasn't in daycare yet. But I was putting my makeup on, and I had her on the boppy on the toilet seat. You guys all see where this is going. But she's a month old, so she's tiny, doesn't move that much. And I'm like, I can do it all. I'm a working mom. I can host a show and take care of a baby. And she just went
face first, just on the tile floor of the bathroom, which it was not a far drop at all.
Right. She's on the boppy.
Right. And babies, by the way, are like made of rubber when they're like a month old. And all of that, like, oh, I'm so cool when, like, don't overreact. When I was screaming louder than she was screaming. I was doing that, I don't know what to do! like freaking,
Right.
She was so fine, by the way, and thankfully she had her 1 month checkup, and I told the doctor, I was like crying, I was like, I dropped her, just fell on her face, and he literally is like, I don't even see a bruise, like, she's totally fine. I was like, does she have a concussion? He's like, I doubt it. He's like,
I love the feeling you have when you take the kid to the doctor and you're like praying they don't find specific
they don't
bruises.
take the baby away from you.
Yeah.
They're like,
oh yeah, you try to act like you're the best parents. You're like, yes, I'm on top of all of that. I never raise my voice.
I don't anymore because I'm like, I need them to tell me I'm doing okay. I'm the opposite. I'm like, listen, I told my kid I was going to kill him the other day because he wouldn't shut up.
Oh my God. Well, I mean, I haven't said that to my doctor yet, but I say it on stage. I go like, and this is something no one talks about, especially 0 to 4 months. The fact that I've said, and I know everyone else has said, shut the fuck up to my daughter's face. I've screamed it while she was screaming in her bassinet, screamed it to her face. And I started crying immediately after. And then every parent I've talked to afterwards is like, oh my God, I've said that a million times. You can't, there's no way you can even stop it. It literally just builds up. And then you're just like, shut up. And then you're like, oh my God, like you're just like spiraling into a circle. And then I've had screaming matches with her. Like she's like, ah, and then I'm like, ah. And we're just like at each other's like, who can do it? And she's like a month. She doesn't even know what life is. And I'm like, then cut to like me in the corner, just like crying, shaking. I'm like, what's happening to my,
Your daughter thinks it's all hilarious.
She
Jersey,
does now.
totally bored.
She does now, and it's funny, I don't scream anymore like that. I definitely have yelled, can I just take a shit the other night because she was screaming because I left the room. She's at that age, and I just was like, I have to poop, and I just screamed it. And my friend who's renting the guest house in the back, like texted me. She's like, you okay? You need some help? I'm like, no, I just have to take a crap. Like, my daughter won't let me do that right now because I left the room for a minute.
Right. That doesn't change. I lock the door, and he's figured out at 6 how to unlock doors. So he just comes right in, and he's like, Mom, I'm going to do face paint while you're pooping. Yeah. And I'm like,
he's a butter knife lockpick.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Well, I mean, you might as well use him to start like breaking into safes.
That's the plan. He's got those little hands.
Yeah. Speaking of, I hope that's a side hustle for him since we named him.
That's a great side hustle.
I want to ask you about some of the things you mentioned, none of which were on the stuff you messaged us.
Because I've had every job.
Exactly.
I love that.
Exactly.
But one of the things you said, so you listed 10 different versions of babysitter, and one of them you mentioned that I've heard before, but don't know how it's different.
Mother's helper.
What's a mother's helper? How is that different?
Well, so mother's helper, and I did that, by the way, I was like 12, 13, which is very young. But when you grow up like, in a town, a suburban town where you kind of know a lot of the people, it was basically, I'm helping the mom. I didn't get paid, like, I probably got paid, I was a 12-year-old. I was a tween, but I was taking care of 3 kids while they were at work. I mean, by all intents and purposes, a mother's helper is just a nanny that you pay like $1. Like, it was more like, I mean, I made barely any money, but I was like, I have a job. I have a summer job. And not only did I take care of 3 kids, it was like 6, 5, and a baby. And I was like, what? But I had to like, it was probably only like 4 hours a day, but in my, teenage mind, tween mind, it was like hours and hours. But I like made them dinner. It was like after, in the afternoon. Right. It's crazy. Yes. Yeah. I was called a mother's helper because I was helping the mom who just wasn't present.
Right. I did that too. I was actually babysitting, but it's when they called it a mother's helper too. I don't know if it was a Midwest thing for some reason, but I was like 11 or 12. I was in like 6th grade.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And it was my neighbors, and she would have to go to the grocery store, and she had 5 boys.
My God.
That's insane. Would go over, and she would pull out a brick of cheddar, and she's like, just cut the mold off of it, and then give them some cheese and crackers, and I'll be home. So I was like, with a knife, 5 boys
Yeah.
climbing and scream.
As
These
an
boys-
11-year-old.
Oh my God. As an 11-year-old, I had to threaten to call 911 and they were like, "What? Why?" And I was like, because they were peeing on each other.
Oh my
They were
God.
having like pee
What the
wars.
shit?
You guys, it was an 11-year-old shouldn't be left alone with 5
No,
boys
but-
under the age of 10.
But having said that, I don't remember then with 3 kids that I'm sure were like I don't remember getting as stressed as I get now
No.
as a full-grown adult. Because as an 11,
Yes.
12-year-old, you're like, whatever, because you're also still a child. So
Yeah.
you're like, I don't care, make a mess. I don't care. You just want to make sure they're fed, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. Like if they have to do homework, or like just do your homework. Like you don't really care
Yeah.
because you're a child yourself. So you don't even have that sort of like stress level where now it's like, you're just like constantly just like, oh my God, why are you trying to kill yourself? Yeah, back then it's like, I don't care if you kill yourself, you're not my kid.
So what's interesting to me is though that you did all these jobs with children and you're like, oh, and I did this and I did that and I did this and I did that. And I've always worked with kids. But yeah, Jodi was like, but that's not what I'm going to do for a living. I'm going to be a comedian.
Oh, well, I never
I'm
knew
gonna be
I
an
wanted-
actor.
I never wanted, well, actually, no. I used to always, so funny, I just brought this up the other day. Like, I came out to California to be a bartender, but thankfully I was just acting on the side.
Yeah.
You watched Cocktail?
And I love that you were a bartender in the recent Netflix movie.
Oh, in Eliza's movie, yeah.
In Eliza's movie.
I
It was
know.
so great. I was like, oh.
Yeah, it was so well. Yeah, she just was like, "Do you want to be a bartender in this?" I was like, "Sure."
Sure, why
I
not?
remembered that role because
Sure,
I
I'll
did it
live
for
my
like
dream.
15 years. I was a bartender for so long, and you know what? It is. I would recommend that to anyone because
If you can
I
get
started bartending. I was like cocktail waitressing in college at 19, and I started bartending right around there because one of the bartenders called in sick, and I was like, I know how to make those drinks. Like there was a lot of drinks you just already know how to make, and I've always been a big fake it till you make it type of thing. So I was like,
Yeah.
well, figure it out. I remember bartending in college and like looking in the cocktail book if somebody would ask me what it was, and it was such an amazing job because I made so much money, and then when I got out of college, I was working in Hoboken, which is like the mecca, and I was just making, hand over fist money, which was a good and bad thing. My 20s, I wasn't nearly as focused as I should have been on the fact that I wanted to be an actor. At that time, I didn't like get into comedy until I was about 25, but I was acting for sure, but I was really bartending and just living the life, making thousands of dollars, just thousands, just hand over fist, just partying. I was like, this is the best. And then when I came out here, that's the great thing about being a bartender. Like you can do it anywhere, and you can do it in like catering. You can do private events. You can work at a bar. I loved working at a bar. It's really sad because the owner of the bar, Patrick Malloy's, down in Hermosa Beach, I came out here and I was like 28, and I was only out here like a week, and I applied down there because I thought I was only going to be out here like 3 months. 22 years later, I got a job there, and because he was from Jersey, and if it wasn't for Patrick Malloy's, because I was there 3.5 years, if it wasn't for that, I probably would have moved back to Jersey. I found my people there, like some of my best friends that I'm still friends with today. It's just it was a great family, and it was such a great way to make money and to only work like 3 days a week. So I had all my days free to audition. And then when comedy started really taking over my life, and I wanted to do it more, that's when I realized I needed to leave bartending and do more of a day job. And I literally left bartending to become a nanny. And I'm still friends with, Gracie, when I started, was 3.5, and she is now almost 24.
Wow.
And lives in New York. She just graduated college, and she's 23, and I just saw her before she left because she wanted to meet my daughter. It was very full circle, and she's like living in New York, like living the life. I'm like, ugh, whenever I see her pictures on Instagram, I'm so jealous.
But you never send her out to Hoboken, right?
Oh, she's been to Hoboken. She's like at Hoboken. Yeah, she's like partying. She's got a sweet place with a doorman in Chelsea. She's doing.
Is she in the business? Like, are her folks in the business?
Her family is very, very, very wealthy. She's fine.
How did you end up okay, so both those 2 jobs are dream jobs when you come to California, and they're really hard to get. A lot of performers.
Nannying is not. And bartending, I was very fortunate because I just went into a bar. The truth is that honestly, what I found out very quickly was there's a lot of very attractive bartenders, but they weren't very good. And on the East Coast, it's totally different. You can be attractive and also be an amazing bartender. And everybody she was like really slow. And I remember saying to the owner, I was like, your bartenders are so slow. How much do they, I just immediately was like, how much do they ring a night? Because in Hoboken, we were very competitive about like our sales at the end of the night. We would just be like, how much did you ring? How much? We were really, really fast, and you had to be. So I remember saying that to the owner, Patrick Malloy, is like, how much do your bartenders ring? And he was like, he was shocked that I said that, and then he told me, and I was like, I could easily triple that on a Saturday night. Easily.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor.
You know what I bet our listeners are thinking right now?
What's that, Bieber?
They're probably thinking, this podcast thing is so easy. I could start my own podcast. And you know what? They're right.
Yeah, we've been using Anchor for a few months now, and it has totally changed our game. Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain.
It's free!
I said, let me explain.
Fine.
There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. And Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and pretty much anywhere podcasts are streamed. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. I mean, it's everything you need to make a podcast, all in one place.
And it's free!
Yes. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. And now, back to the podcast.
That's a very East Coast, and all of the jobs I ever got like that were like that. Now, as far as nannying, there was another comic, Laura Dodona. I think she moved back to the East Coast, very funny. She was a nanny, and she just told me about this agency. There's a lot of agencies out here. I mean, I went there, trust me, I think it's the easiest thing for people to do. You just go to an agency, you have your references, and it was the first family I met. And then you can pick your, I actually was more part-time.
I met with the family,
and it was so funny because I just didn't know how things, I didn't know how that worked. I was there 2 to 6, 5 days a week. And as I was leaving, I was like, okay, I'll take the job. I mean, she goes, it was super easy and more people, but I was like, I met with the family. And it was so funny because I just didn't know how things, I didn't know how that worked. But I met her and I met Gracie. It was 3.5. And as I was leaving, I was like, okay, I'll take the job. And she goes, oh, no, we're interviewing more people. But I was like, oh, okay. I had no idea. I was like, okay.
Right.
But then
You're hiring me. Yeah, I'll take this job.
I'll take this. Then she called me a week later, and she's like, we'd love to have you. And I mean, again, I'm very close with the family to this day. I mean, we're really close. So, and I stayed close with them even after, I left when she was 6. But yeah.
And you were able, it was done at 6 and you were able to get out to clubs for 8:00 shows.
It was, oh my God, it was perfect. It was so perfect. It was great. I also didn't start till 2, so it's not like I had to wake up early. You know what I mean?
Did you make enough? Did you make enough?
No, I didn't. I had to go back to bartending. A couple nights a week, and that's when Acme, I was, a company member at Acme, and that's when the owner of Acme bought Amalfi. So
Amalfi's the restaurant downstairs from the Acme Comedy Theater.
I was able to work Tuesdays and Thursdays. I was able to work more off nights there. But the great thing about that is that for anybody in LA that remembers, Amalfi upstairs was room 5, and I brought comedy there, and then I taught comedy there. So I really sort of blended those two worlds. And then, in that time, I also became the manager of my apartment building, and then I was a personal assistant. So I've had a lot of jobs that sort of was conducive to what I was doing in my career. And then actually at that time too, I wasn't hardcore stand-up. I was doing more like my one-woman show, and I was performing. I wasn't hardcore stand-up probably until, early 30s, mid-30s. But I was doing it. I just wasn't doing it 5-6 nights a week and traveling a lot. I started traveling around 35. But in that time, I was doing a lot of ghostwriting. I got hired as to rewrite a script. I was doing a lot of that, and that was really lucrative, and that was great. And that got me completely out of the bartending game for good. And but honestly, all of those things wouldn't have happened without stand-up. Stand-up opened every single door that I've walked through to this day. Every door. It's crazy.
That's crazy. Let's talk about ghostwriting for a second. because we've talked about ghostwriting a lot on this show because we have a lot of writers on, and ghostwriting is a lucrative and sort of big ticket item to get. And we're not just talking about ghostwriting. We're going to talk about what you were ghostwriting. I'm talking about like some people are ghostwriting memoirs with celebrities and their names actually go on the books. Some people are ghostwriting, celebrities are writing a fictional novel. People hate when you say that, but I have to say it because some people will be like, what's fiction? A novel. Yes. Which is a story. Yes. That is fiction.
Pretend
it's
words
not real.
Out of 100 or so pages that are glued together.
Right. So for all my writing people,
it's a book that you open. It's made of paper.
Right. But for all the writers out there who hate it when people say that, listen, some people don't know.
Oh, Jesus.
So
but not our audience.
Yeah, those are the people that really think that all reality shows are real.
Yeah.
So they write novels for celebrities, but the celebrity name goes on it, and everyone thinks the celebrity has actually written this novel.
Yes.
And it's been ghostwritten. So Jodi, let's talk for a second about what you're ghostwriting.
Yes.
Because you are a very talented writer.
Oh, I appreciate that. The very first job that thank you. First job that I got, which is another fake it till you make it type of situation. A friend of mine was a producer, and she was working with a good friend of mine who's a big producer. I mean, he's always been a big producer, but even bigger now. They had a script and they needed a non-union at the time. This guy was a first-time writer, and he also was directing it, and he had a lot of funding. So we had some big names, Lou Diamond Phillips, Pam Grier, and it was a supernatural, which I love. But people just assume that comedy is my jam. And I wrote all 4 seasons of Co-Ed Confidential, which was on Cinemax, so I can write soft porn, people, different than hard porn. But
scripts are needed.
They are needed. And this was before though. This was definitely before Co-Ed Confidential. But my friend was working on it, or my friend wasn't working on it, but she was friends with this producer, and they needed a non-union writer to clean this script up because it was just like garbage. But they had like good talent attached before they started shooting. So she sent it to me, and I met with him. It wasn't like, oh, you just have this job. I'd never cleaned up, not punch up, just clean up a script, dialogue, doctor, everything. And I remember reading it, and I went into the meeting. I was like, just be honest, you know what I mean? And I literally said, because the writer wasn't in there, it was just the EP, the executive producer, and I just said, hey, the good news is that all of the scenes are in order. I mean, like, in order of a movie. Like, it all makes sense that this happens here, then this, then that. It wasn't like jumping over.
Let me be honest, that's huge.
It is actually very, very huge. For people listening, like, if you think that's a joke, it's not actually. That's actually that's the hardest thing to be like, okay, now wait a minute, where does the story go? So I was like, but what I said to him, but having said that, it is very clear that this person has never had another conversation with a female in his life because all of his female characters sound exactly the same. I go, this doesn't make sense. And I broke it down, but I broke it down in a way like, I didn't say like, this needs so much work. I broke it down in a way, and for anyone listening, whenever you're doing something like that, if you want the job, make sure you let them know that you're the one who's capable of doing that, and it's a job that can be done. It's not like, oh my God, this is impossible. So I was like, look, all the scenes are in order, which is an amazing thing. I think the dialogue needs a lot of help, and I definitely can specialize in that because I've done a lot of that work. I also feel like you can add a little bit more of the human interest story into here. Another thing there, we can add a slight little bit, just because it's supernatural doesn't mean there can't be a little bit of humor. Any kind of humor usually makes the people,
relatable.
Connect more, relate.
Yeah.
And I broke it down about what I would do, and he right then and there was like, "You're hired." So it was very great.
You said, "I'll take the job."
Yes. At that point, I was like, "Great, I'll take the job." So I remember I had like less than a week to like clean this up, but it was so great. I loved it. It's like a puzzle, like putting it together, and I just and at that time, I didn't even have. Did I have? Oh, I had Final Draft, but I didn't have a laptop. That's how long ago it was. I didn't have a laptop, and so I was working on just like my PC, and I sent it to them, super happy, I get paid. Cut to like a couple weeks later, it was Halloween, because I've never done that
at my
before.
friend's
he
house,
just
like
goes,
a little party.
So how much is it gonna take?
My answer
and
machine
I literally,
was the producer.
I didn't even have a second to like consult
like,
friends.
call me back
I don't
ASAP.
know what to say.
Like,
I
hey,
knew
we're
what
up
to
in
say
Sacramento,
for
we're
the
shooting,
rewriting
we're like,
job itself.
Only 4 days in.
I already had a number in mind.
I didn't know that the writer was also the director.
But
I
for them
didn't
to
know
fly
that.
me
And
up and be on set,
when he saw all the changes I made,
and he
just
said,
he changed them all back.
$15,000.
He changed a lot of them back.
He didn't change the dialogue,
$15,000, which is funny. He knew that the dialogue
was better. But he added all these scenes that I cut that were unnecessary exposition, like a lot of crap that you just don't need. I'm 20, and because he thought I was playing they were already $1 million now over budget. Yeah, it was already, yeah. Like big. I mean, it was a $2 million film, and he already like brought because he kept changing things so that they were only shooting like quarter days. Lou Diamond Phillips had a hard out on when he was only there, like his contract. It was a lot. It was a mess. And so this is the best. I remember Dan, the EP, on the phone was like, "We need you to fly up to Sacramento tomorrow and fix this on set." And I know, and I was like, "Oh, okay." And it's so funny because I paused because I've never done that before, and he just goes, "So how much is it gonna take?" And I literally, I didn't even have a second to like consult friends. I don't know what to say. I knew what to say for the rewriting job itself. Like I already had a number in mind what they were going to pay me. But for them to fly me up and to be on set, I don't know. And he just said $15,000. That's what he just said. And this was a long time ago, people. He just goes $15,000, and I went deaf for like a second because I was like. I go, he goes, "Jodi, I'm 20? Because he thought I was playing hardball. And I go, "Yeah, okay." I was just like, "Speak." I'm like, "Speak." So
oh my God.
I was like, "Speak." He's like, "Great. We'll confirm it up. We'll lock it up tomorrow." I was like, so I just was so stunned. So like cut to, I fly up the next day. They give me a laptop when I get there because I was like, I don't have a laptop. I mean, I bought one after this job, people, like immediately. And
she still has it. It's on a shelf.
The exact same one. I'm on it right now. And it was an amazing experience. And I met some of the other EPs on. There was like 2 other EPs that they were only on set for like a day or two. And because I got in there and we had second I got off the plane, I was rewriting. I mean, up until like 3 a.m. And then like the next day they went dark just so we go over all the changes. And like, you could only imagine the director, the guy who wrote it, was also just hated me. But I got him back on track. I got everyone back on track. And because of that, I got a lot of jobs from that one job because the other 2 EPs were like, "Oh, what's your fee for dialogue?" I just started getting, that was a huge like, bump in my career at that time where I was like, I was able to like quit bartending, and I did a lot of rewrites, and then I started doing some stuff for Lifetime. And
did you get an agent?
I didn't get an agent. You know, it's really funny.
Lifetime's non-union, right?
I did all non-union stuff, or a lot of under the table stuff. Like it was union, but I wasn't union, and my name was not attached to anything, and I was fine with that. But but the Lifetime stuff, my name was attached, but it was more under like consulting. Yeah. So and then I had an agent, a regular lit agent, but I didn't even bring them in on that. I was like, this is just my money, and then.
You didn't make your deal, so
I didn't. And then you know what? It all went away. It's so funny. I always tell people in this industry, like, I thought this is it. This is where I blow up. This is where I keep moving forward, and then it stops. And then you're like, what's going on? And then I got other writing work. And then I got the books. I started doing the books, and then that allowed me to go on Confidential.
So books don't make a lot of money.
No, I made garbage money.
Yeah. So what people think is like all these authors are like, raking it in, but that's not true. Like authors have. Writing's really their side hustle. Like they're all
unless it's like on the bestseller list, you know what I mean?
But even on the bestseller list, you have to have multiple bestsellers.
You have to have so many sales to make anything. Like we got in advance. It was me and my co-author Greg. I wrote one of the OMG was me. WTF was Greg and I. And you get in advance, which is nothing. I mean, it's like a few thousand each. Yeah. And you're like, great. And the book, you have 20 days per book to like bang it out.
Wow.
And, you do it. And then you're waiting for royalties that never come because the books, they didn't. And this is like a full on publishing house. This is Adams Media. This is not like self-published. This is like full on HarperCollins, like Adams Media, which is a subsidiary, like a pod. I mean, they've got tons of books, you know what I mean? Our books were like, in Urban Outfitters, in Barnes and Nobles, they were everywhere. They were everywhere. They were in airports. It's a great, fun coffee book on Amazon. You can find them all. But there wasn't enough sales. There was not even you have to sell so many books. So many. I think the only book we got royalties from was WTF College. That book made a lot of money because of like every time college, like the fall came around, Barnes and Nobles at that time, bookstores, people, that's what I'm talking about, like actual bookstores, they would put those books in the college section, and they were fun books. So we made, I think, a couple hundred each from royalties for that, and then it stopped, you know what I mean? But yeah, you can't make a living, you know what I mean?
So you were
Don't say that. Jamie just got her MFA. Her first book's about to come out.
You can make a big living, Jamie.
I'm so okay. The first thing they teach you before you even sign up to, even before you even apply for your MFA, they're like, you're not going to make any money as an author, right? Like, don't quit your day job. But just like TV writers, they say, don't buy a house.
Right.
Don't buy a house just because you got you're on a TV show. It got picked up for two more seasons. You're a writer on the show, because once the show ends, how are you going to make that mortgage?
I bought a house. I didn't get that memo. I wrote, funny you should ask, for 3 seasons. I bought a house, got a baby, and the show hasn't come back yet because a pandemic happened.
Yeah,
right.
But yeah, I didn't get that memo. I did get the memo about not rocking your baby to sleep,
which is important.
About not buying a house, right?
Which is important. But the thing with you is, it's okay that you bought the house because you waited to buy that house. I mean, you were managing an apartment building as a side hustle.
A long time. I mean, I was in that building for 20 years. I managed it for about 9, and I was the assistant manager for 8 before that. So I wasn't going to leave that building, and I loved that apartment. I wasn't going to leave that until I bought a house. So yeah.
I think we have friends that live there still. I think Kevin Ashworth still lives there.
I love Kevin, yes.
Kimberly
still
lives there.
Yeah,
it's a great building.
Yeah, it's a great building. There was no reason to leave, especially when I wasn't paying rent for the last 8 years. You know what I mean? Like, why? Yeah. Where would I go? Like,
that's another job that a lot of people. Another coveted actor job.
It's a great job.
And our guest Celeste Paykosh
did the same thing.
Has a Showtime series, and she is never leaving her job or her apartment because she doesn't have to pay the rent.
You don't pay the rent.
And she's got a Showtime series.
Yeah. The reason, I knew I wanted to have a baby, and I knew I wasn't going to raise her in a 1-bedroom apartment, and I was done. I wanted a yard. I wanted the next chapter of my life to begin, and as much as I loved the apartment, and I actually remained consulting, so I still got paid a little bit for about 1.5 years, just recently, because I'm still really good friends with the owner. I just recently completely pulled away because they hired somebody completely new. I was still helping the other assistant manager. I loved that building, but I knew that, if it was a bigger apartment, I would have stayed longer, but I really wanted a house, and I really, I wanted to have a family, and it wasn't going to happen in that apartment. So I had also just felt stuck for 20 years. Like, I talk about that, I really felt stuck. Not just because I was in an apartment, for the exact same apartment for 20 years. Like, I was in that apartment longer than I was in my childhood home. Yeah. I just felt stuck in every aspect of my life. It just my life wasn't moving really forward. Like, things would happen, and then I would America's Got Talent. And then, when America's Got Talent premiered, I was delivering groceries. That was such a side. That was Instacart, by the way, before Instacart was really big.
Before pandemic, you were delivering groceries.
Yeah, years ago. This is
just to lazy people.
To rich people, because
just to rich people. Let's take a quick break.
And we're back.
Because Instacart, when I started, you could only shop at Whole Foods or Trader Joe's. Yeah. That was it. The only 2 places. They didn't go anywhere else. And I had specific clients, but it was very part-time, and it was great because while I was being the apartment manager, I was also doing this. It was super easy. But of course they played up, on AGT. I was also freelancing for a company in New York, writing web descriptions. Now I'm delivering groceries. Between those 3 things, I was like, this is great. It was really weird, and just talk about delivering groceries. But then cut to something shifted, and my life tragedy that is America's Got Talent. So they were they just cut me without warning. Fast forward so quickly, it was apart. Hyperspeed. My freelance job went away. They didn't need me anymore. Everything immediately I got on just delivering groceries. Shows, and I worked on another show. Then the show got picked up, then I became the head writer. I was so then I got picked up for more seasons, then I got the weather show, then all of a sudden I was buying a house 20 years ago. I bought a house and got a baby in an apartment under 2 years. Everything went so fast. I mean, it was really weird. All of a sudden, that it was you've been stuck, and now something shifted, and my life went like so fast, like fast forward so quickly. It was like hyperspeed. It was like, oh my God. I mean, I got on, I was working on a show, then I worked on another show, then the show got picked up, then I became the head writer, then it got picked up for more seasons, then I got the weather show, then all of a sudden I'm buying a house. I bought a house and got a baby in under 2 years. Everything went so fast.
Yeah.
All of a sudden that it was like, oh, you've been stuck, and now, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So it can happen to anyone at any time. It doesn't matter what job you're doing at any age, because the next day, everything can change for the better or for the worse, but let's hope for the better.
Yeah. And then there could be a global pandemic, which stops everything again.
Everything's
But how glad are you that you're in the house during the global pandemic?
Oh my God.
Oh my God. In the beginning, I wasn't. I was happy and I wasn't. If my two best friends were in, two and a half. My friend Andy lived in that building I was really close with. My friend Ariel, I got her in the building, and Kimberly was right next door to me. And I was very lonely in the beginning. When the world shut down, I was like very lonely. And if I had been in the building, we could have all just hung out together,
Right.
So it was very, very lonely. But then, I was like, oh, I have this huge backyard. I have a pool. I could sit outside. I felt sort of like safer out in the valley. It was just more spread out. Everything about it, I just was like, I just felt like better. It was very lonely for sure. And I had definitely had sort of like resentment to people that weren't alone during the pandemic, because I know everybody was going through it. But I mean, when you don't have any human contact with anyone, like you haven't touched another person.
Yeah.
You start to it really starts fucking with you. And I started going to the grocery store earlier than anyone. I didn't give a shit. I was making like homemade masks, but I'm like, I have to be around some people.
Yeah.
As someone who lives alone, I have to. It's only so much, we're social creatures. So it was, that was definitely hard.
I think an important part of that to note is you're always working. You are one of those people that's always working in person. Like comedy is very close.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like you have an audience that you're always around energy of other people in this business.
Yes.
So that and you go home because you're always around other people's energy.
Yes, and when I go home, I enjoy being alone and shutting it down and being quiet. But when it's like that all the time, it was really hard.
That fucks with your head.
I would like to pivot for a second. And I don't know when this job took place, but I would just hate myself forever if we didn't talk about how you used to sell imitation perfume out of the back of your car.
Yeah.
Such a good job. I actually
with benefits, right?
I actually reconnected with my co-saleswoman, Laura, who on Instagram. It's so funny. That job, as actors, you guys know, we're just natural salesmen. That's why so many actors become real estate agents, because that's the natural progression of it. We're just like, now I'll sell homes.
All of them.
Yeah, seriously. So, I was in college and it was a summer job, and I don't even know how I must have seen an ad. Who the hell knows? It was one of those crazy, just not like it's sort of a pyramid scheme, but in a different way. Basically, they were just nondescript, huge bottles that actually smelled exactly like the real thing. I'm not even kidding you. All of the name brands. And basically, I think the bottles, we sold them for $25, but we only had to pay $17 per bottle to, the boss guy. So, and then if you train someone, like I trained Laura, I'd get $1 for every bottle, or $2 for every bottle she sold, and it went down that, you know what I mean?
You love that downline.
Yeah, so I quickly became one of the top salespeople, and they'd always have contests too.
Sure.
It was so great. So basically, here was my spiel, mine and Laura's. We would go to a mall, if anybody's familiar with the East Coast, in Jersey, the Willowbrook Mall is a huge mall, huge parking lots. And they're two girls, very non-threatening. You dress nice, you dress very nice. You make sure you know what kind of hotels are in the neighborhood. So let's say there's a Hyatt right there. And then you see people, I'd see both of you guys, and I'd be like, oh my God, hi, excuse me. I'm so sorry to bother you, because you're walking into the mall. The reason that you always pick a mall or a shopping center is because people are going somewhere to shop. They're going somewhere to spend money already.
Right.
So you're walking I'm so sorry. I still don't mean to bother you. I actually just did a huge convention over at the Hyatt. I work for a big perfume company. You know those bottles, like when you're in a department store and people spray you with those bottles? They're called tester bottles. And after you have a convention or a show, they need to get rid of them at cost. So I just wait, what kind of perfume do you wear? So before you could say anything, I'm already asking you, Jaime, what kind of perfume do you wear? And then you're like, I don't know, Beautiful by Estee Lauder. Oh my God, we have Beautiful, we have Dracar, we've got, Red Door, we've got all of this stuff. If I could just, if you just want to take a look, because it's literally at cost, and they're giant bottles. And then I'd say maybe 8 times out of 10, you can get them. If you can get them to come back to your car, they're sold.
They're sold. Yeah.
And 8 times out of 10, I'd get them to come back to the car. So they come back to the car, and what I do is I'd have this big box, and they were huge bottles with no label, but there'd be a label on the box, really, really nice boxes. And I'd put Beautiful in your hand. Oh my God, have you tried Happy, also by Clinique? It's so good. I'd put that in your hand. You'd start smelling it. Wow, this is really good. By the time you had 3 bottles in your hand, I was already like, oh my God, aren't they great? And you're like, oh my God, they're so great. They're $25 a bottle. I'm like, they're $25 a bottle. Do you want to get all 3 or just the 2?
Yeah.
It's already I think I'm just going to get the 2. Okay. And then if you're like, wait, do you actually have Elizabeth Arden Red Door? And I'm like, you know what? I do have that. It's just a little bit more. So, and then I'm saying it like you can't afford it. And then you're like, well, how much more? And I'm like, no, it's 30 compared to 25. And then you're like, no, I want to smell that. And then you're like, I'm going to take this and this one. And there's so many strategies to and then, when I say I would sell so much of it, I actually drive home, because I was only an hour from home when I went back to school, and I would get a box of it and bring it back to my campus. And if you think about this back in the 90s, guys, when I went to college, every college student was given a checkbook by their parents. It was their first checking account. So they have checks. And what do kids love to do? They love to write checks. So I would go from dorm to sorority house, and people were like, I have a check. $25. And I was like, thank you, here it is. I sold so much at school. I just kept racking in money. We would make so much money and have so much fun driving around from mall to mall. Super creepy now. But, I would go to
any job that success is measured by whether you can get someone to follow you back to your car is going to be.
Oh my God, but I used to also, by the way, once you turn that salesman part of your brain on, you can't turn it off. I remember I was in an ATM and this woman came in.
You now. You're on fire. I'm ready to buy perfume from you right now.
This lady walked into the ATM. She just saw she just worked out. And I was literally just getting cash. I couldn't help myself. I go, I'm so sorry. I don't even mean to bother you. But what kind of perfume do you wear? And I was like, it's so weird. I just work for this company. I sold her a bottle. She was getting cash. She was like, well, hold on. Let me just get cash. I could sell anywhere. I was I couldn't stop.
But it did also take. I did the same thing, but I actually worked for Estee Lauder.
Oh my God, hilarious.
I worked at I know. I worked at the prescriptives counter and
wondering where is everybody?
Where is everybody? They're in the parking lot with Jodi, Jaime. But when I worked for Estee Lauder, I worked as a makeup artist. So I wasn't at the counter. So they would bring me in as a consultant. We were called consultants, and we would boost sales for the day. But the account coordinator that I worked for in Detroit, around the same age as you were doing it, she moved over to a perfume line. She left Estee Lauder and moved to a perfume line. She's like, do you want to do perfume for me? And I was like, I don't know. It pays less than makeup.
Right.
She was like, no. I'll give you boxes of testers and you can sell them on your own.
Oh my God.
So I had
before you did the same thing, but with the real version.
But with the real version, all the testers, I had 3 boxes. The thing is, it was a shitty perfume that nobody wanted, and it stunk like ass. And I had to just give it away before I moved to California because nobody wanted to buy it. So I failed.
So you failed at that, but that's not your fault. If it had smelled good,
it was shitty perfume. I don't even think it's still in business.
I don't know. I feel like I would have bought your shitty perfume if Jodi was selling it to me.
You probably would have.
And I would have been able to be like, look, it lingers and it smells a little bit like shit, but you don't understand. It's Estee Lauder, and that's a really big deal when you tell your friends. They're going to be like, whoa.
It's so funny.
We've got a little more time. I definitely want to ask you, America runs on Dunkin', and you were the Dunkin' dealer.
It's where I peaked.
What happened to you at Dunkin' Donuts?
At 14 when I peaked at Dunkin' Donuts. The other day I was driving past Dunkin Donuts and they were like, now hiring. I was like, I should just make it full circle and go back there. It was my first job. I wanted to work. I have always wanted to work. I used to like rake leaves in the neighborhood. I always wanted to make my own money. And Dunkin Donuts is in the mall, in the Rockaway Mall, and my friend, who was older than me, 1 year older, because you could work. You didn't need a worker's permit, I think, if you were 15, but I was only 14. And she got a job at Macy's, and I was like, I have to work in the Rockaway Mall. So I applied.
I can't believe they hired her that young.
At 15?
Yeah, in Michigan, I mean, we could start working at 12 with a work permit, but you couldn't work at the department stores until you were 16, I feel like.
So then maybe she was 16 and I was 15, but I'm not sure. I feel like she was 15.
It's Jersey versus
Jersey.
Jersey.
It's different states.
Yes,
different states.
It's totally right. I mean, yeah. I mean, I think they can only work certain hours. Who knows?
I don't think child labor laws exist in
totally
Jersey
fine.
to this day.
But also, like, think about it. Like, who's asking a 15-year-old in the housewares department, like, about this blender? She's probably like, I don't know.
I don't know. Ask
So
my mom.
at least I knew how to like ring up donuts. So like, yeah, I got a job at Dunkin Donuts, and to be honest with you, Dunkin Donuts is how I learned how to count money really fast, which made me a very fast bartender, because one of the first people I ever worked with at Dunkin Donuts was like, when you're making change, go backwards. So if it's like $7.95 and someone gives you a 20, you're like, $7.95, a nickel mix, 8, 9, 10, and then a 10, 12, 20. Like, so I just was like, no matter what it was 1, 2, 3. And I learned how to do that. And in the Rockaway Mall, Dunkin Donuts opened up, and in the morning when I worked on the weekends, it opened up an hour before all the other stores so that all the employees could get their coffee and their donuts and stuff like that. And there'd be a line around the corner, and I was really fast on the register, like crazy fast. And I was very good at math always, but that really helped me. And I was like really good at just grabbing the donuts and making, so I became shift manager at 15. It was a big deal.
Kind of a big deal.
That's crazy. I was fired at McDonald's.
I was very popular in high school because at that time, they don't do this anymore. At that time, Dunkin' Donuts literally it's a waste, but they made the donuts fresh every day. So they unfortunately threw out whatever was left over, but they actually offered it up to people first. They didn't just throw it out. So all the employees, they were like, take whatever's left home because we got to make a new batch tomorrow. So I would show up every day that I worked. I'd show up to homeroom the next morning with like all these donuts. Like, I was incredibly popular. Everybody was like, oh my God, Dunkin' Donuts.
So there it is. You were the popular girl that everyone hated.
It's so...
Because I had donuts.
Because you had donuts. You took the other bitch down.
That's right.
So when I was at Starbucks, we had the same problem where at the end of the night, there were certain items you had to throw away. You can't keep, but they wouldn't let employees take it.
That's ridiculous.
It had to be given to customers, and we didn't have customers that would take enough of it. So we had to, our store, we called around and finally found a food bank that would drive and pick it up, because we also weren't allowed to drive it over to the food bank because of some sort of OSHA rule. We could have poisoned the stuff. So they had to actually come themselves, pick it up and take it. And that it's a lot of work. And until you work in an industry or at a place that, you can make all these claims like, that's not fair, that's not fair, that's not fair. Like, you guys are wasteful. But in reality, there are all these rules.
I know, there are a lot of rules. Yeah. I mean, Dunkin' Donuts doesn't do that anymore. I don't think they throw them out. I mean, maybe they do. I don't think so, though. But that was their whole commercials at the time. Like, time to make the donuts. We make them bright.
Sam the donut baker.
Yes, Sam the donut. Exactly. Yep. Time to make the donuts. But I mean, they really, at that time, I mean, again, this was like in the 80s. They were just like, give the donuts to whoever wants to take the donuts. But truthfully, though, they were also really good. They wouldn't just constantly, like, if we ran out of a certain brand and it was at night at a certain time, they wouldn't make new ones because we were just out. So that they tried to like eliminate waste for sure.
Oh yeah.
They weren't like, Munchkins always were the first to go.
I had one recently and I was like, this is not what I remember.
You know what? I had one the other day and it's exactly what I remember.
You know what? Sam died a few years ago and nothing's been the same since.
Oh, poor guy.
I don't know where we had one recently.
Oh, I love a good Munchkin. I still love them. I like
donut holes. I like the donut holes at the donut shop up the street.
Oh,
they're always just glazed.
So I like Dunkin's got I like the chocolate, and now they've got pumpkin ones for the holidays, and cinnamon. I mean,
they have
I don't like jelly donut. I don't like jelly Munchkins.
I'm a Boston cream man.
Oh,
way back.
Cream. Mm-hmm.
That's
They have a Reese's peanut butter cup coffee latte at Dunkin' Donuts right now that I saw on TikTok.
Wow, that seems like a lot in a
It
coffee.
seems like
lot.
a lot. And I'm like, can you put that in a munchkin?
I feel like
Yeah,
there ought to
that
be
sounds
a
like a good
Bailey's donut, like it's a Bailey's flavored glaze. I think we've just started a new show.
Like, seriously, I can tell you my favorite donut at Dunkin' Donuts, and I haven't had it in so many years because it definitely, like, you can actually see yourself getting diabetes while eating it. It is the chocolate filled donut. So it's a round donut. It's like the Boston cream ones, but it's, it's got the white powder on top, and inside is chocolate cream, like a chocolate.
That's my favorite. I used to get that all the time.
Yes, me too.
Yep. As a kid.
I have not had this donut.
Oh,
You can literally feel the sugar coursing through your brains as you're eating it. You're like, ugh. You're like literally just like, and I would get one. It might break every single. And those would be one of the first ones that would run out. So I would take one when my shift started and hide it.
Yep.
So that when I
Smart.
got my break, I could have that donut. And it was, I mean, I haven't treated myself to it. One day I will definitely treat myself to a chocolate cream filled donut from Dunkin' Donuts. I haven't in a long time because I don't want to die from a heart attack right now.
No,
but
that's a deathbed donut.
Yeah, it is a deathbed donut. But I had tons of them when I was younger because when you're younger, you're
it
invincible.
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I was 15 and worked at McDonald's. You got a free meal on your shift all the time, and I would get a cheese Danish. They had cheese Danishes then, and I would get a large tea, and I would just eat that cheese Danish like
so
it was
good.
never going to my thighs ever.
Of course, no, never does.
I know we're out of time.
Yeah, I know. My therapy starts in 3 minutes. So.
Oh, well, I can't keep you from that. I did want to ask you about headhunting lawyers, but
Oh God, that was
get
the
to-
worst. That actually is the most boring job. I'm glad you asked me about the other jobs. I did that only for like 4 months, and that was literally just cold calling. You know, those people that are cold calling. It's like, are you happy at your job? It was the worst. And I'm a great salesperson. It doesn't matter. By the way, this is what I did learn. All lawyers don't want to be lawyers. Nobody wants to be a lawyer.
We've learned that on this show too.
Yes.
They all want to be writers.
Nobody wants to be a lawyer. They don't want to be a lawyer. And me calling saying, I have a great opportunity in another law firm. They're like, I'm leaving law. I'm like, okay, bye. It was so bad. I made no money at that job because it was really hard.
I can't believe there's any job you didn't make money at. You're so good at everything you do.
That was the job. That was the job. I didn't make any money.
I think you could have convinced me to get into law.
And we just love Jodi.
And into Drakkar.
Yes.
Yeah.
Easily. I would be soaked in it and driving a Maserati to my office in Glendale.
While watching
Can
her
make that
do
happen.
her voiceover, because Jodi came to the show from voiceover work. So listen,
did,
when
yes.
you hustle as hard as someone like Jodi Miller and you're that talented, you're always going to work.
That's true.
Aw, that's so sweet.
Thank you
guys
so
are
much for being here. I know it's been
Love you
tough,
guys.
and you
No,
are amazing, and
thank you
you're
guys for
always
being-
one of our favorite people. We talk about you all the time.
I love
We
you
love
guys.
you.
Love
We
you
love
both.
you.
And I feel responsible for you guys being together and your son. It's all because of me, guys. Just so
It's
you know.
actually true.
You do own all of this.
It's true.
I did a mitzvah. I love you guys.
Love you.
too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Okay, guys. I'll talk to you soon. Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
She showed on Monday.